Alright, I bit the bullet and went to this movie so that y'all didn't have to, so let's get the obvious question out of the way: was Shang Chi any good? Well, I'd say it was fine. In a vacuum, the movie works, but it isn't a movie I would ever need to see again. It's just one more in a long line of superhero films that becomes less and less important to me with every new release. I put out a video a few months ago which explained my position on Marvel Phase 4, which rankled some people. A lot of you understood where I was coming from, but to those who don't get it, allow me to revisit for a moment because this pretty well sums up my feelings on Shang-Chi and all the rest of the anticlimactic stories being told after Avengers Endgame. We're going to play the imagination game here. Imagine if, after Return of the Jedi, Star Wars fans were subjected to the adventures of a brand new hero that nobody's ever heard of, instead of fan favorites like Luke Skywalker or Princess Leia. The exploits of the new characters seem superfluous to a story that already reached a natural, climactic, and frankly almost perfect conclusion. When fans point this out, the storytellers at Disney call the fans vile names and pull them into the modern-day culture war. Can you imagine such a thing happening? Oh, wait. Alright, fine. I'll try a different one. Imagine then that after the uncommonly satisfying ending of the masterpiece Terminator 2, the storytellers decided for no coherent reason to bring back the Terminator threat and just, kill John Connor, replacing John and the Schwarzenegger Terminator with actors that don't share their immutable characteristics for the sake of inclusion. Oh yeah. Oh. Well, that's what Marvel Phase 4 seems like to me, and I guess that given the current state of decay in Hollywood, Marvel Phase 4 fits in perfectly. It's a pointless, repackaged version of something we've seen before, and complaining about it only gets you called every ist and phobe name in the book. Don't get me wrong, if you like what Marvel is doing, that's fine. It might seem weird for a space pirate like me, but I'm a real live and let live kind of guy.
Yeah, you're a real hero.
So that brings us to Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Tangerines, a movie so bland it made me want a cup of water just to spice up my day.
Of course, everything's been bad since I broke up with my boyfriend. Then do you know what the klutz did?
No, and I don't care.
Whenever I watch a new film, I do my absolute best to avoid bias. I don't want to go into it thinking it's good or bad or anything else, but when the actors in the movie studio themselves go out of their way to color my opinion, well, I'm not sure what the hell they were expecting.
What are you trying to convince me of exactly? That you're as useless as an asshole right here?
During the past few weeks, with the lead up to the release of Shang-Chi, I've been bombarded with crap like this.
Well, guess what, buddy? I think you just f***ing convinced me.
Shang-Chi actress Michelle Yeoh claims Jackie Chan disagreed with women in films until she kicked his butt. For the record, Michelle Yeoh is a legitimate badass. If you've never seen Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, you better put it at the top of your things-to-do list and get to seeing it. She and her co-stars are legitimately amazing, but what the hell is the point of drumming up old crap like this?
Nobody cares.
It is simply a sympathy play. Disney has the professional movie critics in their back pockets already, but stories like this, carefully planted in the media, are meant to drum up sympathy among the plebs. They see articles like this and say, "You go, girlfriend," because here in the West, we're obviously surrounded by a slew of feeble-minded people easily swayed by anecdotal evidence that a fabulously wealthy and famous person like Michelle Yeoh is somehow a victim.
Victims. Aren't we all?
Of course!
Really?
No.
This story was also annoying. Shang Chi's Simu Liu claims, "I thought playing a guy that gets beaten up by a main character was the pinnacle for Asian actors." This just screams, please pretend I'm a victim so that we can drum up support for this upcoming movie. I mean, has this guy never heard of Jet Li, Jackie Chan, Chow Yun-fat, the absolutely legendary Bruce Lee? Here in the West, we absolutely love those guys, and they starred as the heroes in countless films. You could possibly argue there was some sort of martial arts stereotype going on with these Asian actors, but that's pretty weak sauce as a victim card, considering that martial artists are regarded as badasses and wise men, so cry me a river. And it seems I'm not the only one tired of this victim posturing and pandering. In a deliciously ironic twist, it seems like this movie may not make it to Chinese theaters because they don't buy the propaganda being pushed in the film. That country is, of course, highly censorious. According to a recent article from Looper, just recently, China's government enacted a ban on effeminate men on television, telling broadcasters to vigorously promote excellent Chinese traditional culture, revolutionary culture, and advanced socialist culture, instead of what they call abnormal aesthetics and vulgar internet celebrities. In other words, China ain't buying this MCU crap they're trying to promote in Marvel.
Ruh-roh.
Alright, let's dive back into the review of the film. I just thought it was important to give a little context to the film for a moment. It was a bit boring as a movie because I mostly feel like I've seen this movie a million times before. But despite themselves, I don't think Marvel made an objectively bad film here. It certainly isn't a masterpiece, but it was solid, I guess. If I had to list its strengths, I'd say that the infamous Marvel jokes landed fairly well. The villain in the film is not one-dimensional, that's really good. Marvel Studios have come a long way in the last decade on this front, and the action scenes do a nice job of making sure the audience understands the setting and space that the characters are working in, despite the fact that these martial artists are moving at ridiculous speeds. However, there are some story problems. Most notably, for a fast-paced action film, there are entirely too many flashbacks. I mean, they flashback to the same scenes repeatedly, and in many cases, we don't even get new information. They just show the same flashback. I wouldn't say the flashbacks make the story confusing or anything, it just ruins the pace. They turn what could be a pretty action-oriented romp into a semi-serious character story with a muddy, bipolar tone. Ultimately, what really hurts Shang-Chi is all the outside messaging of Marvel and Disney. The ulterior motives of the company damage the goodwill of the people who have no interest in seeing geek spaces turned into battlegrounds for their culture war.
And the innocent will die with the rest of us.
You go first.
It's a really strange form of self-sabotage. Because of their constant efforts, I went into this movie wanting to hate it, wanting it to fail. But the truth is, if I hadn't seen the armada of superhero films that preceded it, this movie would have been okay. It doesn't deserve the 90% or so it has on Rotten Tomatoes. It gets that for the same reason Black Panther was universally praised, because movie critics are too scared shitless to criticize someone who isn't a Caucasian male. But whatever. The closest comparison I can think of for this film is the original Ant-Man, based on the scope of the film, the personal and very human story it's attempting to tell with the fantastical Marvel backdrop, and the offbeat humor that the movie uses. It does, however, miss the charm of someone like Paul Rudd, who is admittedly one of the most charming people on the planet. But on its own, the movie isn't bad. It's bland, but serviceable. In fact, if they would just get out of their own way, Marvel Studios is fully capable of making someone like me, who's been very critical of them lately, eat shit.
Please, sir. I want some more.
But they save me from the crap sandwiches by tripping over their own feet as they insist on entering into the culture war. Sure, they're gaining fans who buy into the victimhood narratives they're trying to push, but they're losing many folks who make up the core of the fan base by constantly reminding us, oh hey, did you know this is actually an Asian representation film? Rather than focus on good story beats, they're too busy beating us over the head with their virtue signals to the point that it feels extremely forced and inauthentic.
I think it was an Asian gang or something. I saw someone, he looked Asian. I'm pretty sure it was Asian.
Thanks for watching, me hearties. If you haven't already, your captain is inviting you to subscribe to the channel and become a part of the crew. Life as a space pirate may not be glamorous, but there's always plenty of booty.